This evening's talk is titled Addiction Awareness Meditation. Talk number 1. I intend to give a few of these talks. For a long time I was going into drug rehab situation, and now I don't go in there so much anymore, once in a while, but my students, 3 of them, go in to help people with awareness practice as a tool. It's not going to necessarily replace what cognitive behavioral therapy, moral inventory, AA programs, NA programs, and all of that. Sometimes the only thing that's going to work for you is AA. Sometimes it's the last thing you want to do is AA because it's so chatty, or because it's not chatty enough. So the idea with addiction awareness meditation is not so much about recovery, which is a different way of approaching what we're calling addiction, excuse me, which could be just substance use, problems with substance use. Some people use substances and there's no problem. For them, there might be for others around them. So there's a book by, I wrote it down here, that I highly recommend, called Drug Dealer MD by Anna Lemke, MD. Drug Dealer MD. She just talks about the difficulty that we have with just the whole, she paints a pretty big picture of how everybody got kind of tricked into prescribing things to kill pain, which cause a terrible situation for people. They get so addicted to things that are even more potent than the things we normally think of that have the bad name, like heroin, crack cocaine, so on. So what I wish to talk about is how anyone could use sitting practice of meditation the way it's taught here. I'm not talking about we could probably have dozens and dozens of ways of meditating. They've been going down through the centuries, all kinds of ways of, let's do this, let's do that, let's do a mantra, let's do visualizations, let's. None of them are, from my point of view, are incorrect, nor particularly correct. I really feel, from having trained as a meditation instructor by my teacher Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche in 1978. I started meditating in 73. Eventually became a meditation instructor by going through that training. After meeting hundreds and hundreds of people over years, I see where everyone is so completely different. That's why I start people with a very open-ended sitting practice that is traditional, goes back to ancient times. Shikantaza. Just sit down, hold still, look. Just sit down, hold still, hear. Just sit down, hold still, taste, touch, feel, think. Nothing extra. If you start to think about your thinking, this is extra. But of course, it's not about stopping that. That's a misunderstanding. It's not about manipulating the mind. It is about seeing the mind so very, very clearly that you understand the way in which the mind is working. Not like you could write a book about it necessarily. If you understand what this is, you might have to look at it for another 10 years before you can open your, I was going to say big mouth, but I won't say that. Taking what you see and understand and what you're aware of and converting it back, dropping down a few levels out of the clouds from what you're aware of into some kind of relative situation that you can chatter about or talk about or explain or come up with formulas. It's a misunderstanding. So the idea with addiction awareness meditation is not so much to become a Buddhist or to study the Eightfold Path or anything other than just see what this is. Just see who you are. Sit down, hold still, and just watch what continues to flip around, turn over, and run around in circles, and jump up and down, and get larger, get smaller. The very simple things in awareness that are about the texture of it, the size of it, the shape of it, the speed of it. Not even what it is. You might see that something is moving very fast without even knowing what it actually is. If you know what it is, this is what this looks like. You just named it. As soon as you name anything, now this contradicts a lot of theories and ideas about therapy. And I'm not here to dispute anyone or to make this right and everyone else wrong. I'm just saying this may not be for you. This awareness meditation may not be something that you want to do. You may need to take another approach to working with your addiction or your substance use issues. That being said, you could continue to do something like AA or NA, or use cognitive behavioral techniques to see how you keep distorting your thinking. Some of that conceptual material works very well. There's several ways that that's being used. The work by Byron Katie is a very powerful tool for using the intellect to go back into the intellect and see how we tell ourselves lies. Believe our thoughts. Don't believe your thoughts. All thoughts are lies. They're certainly not facts. They may have some factual quality to it, possibly. So by sitting down and watching what moves, we see the thought patterns come and go. We see emotions arise and fall, get larger, get smaller, turn sideways, turn this way, turn that way. Added stories jump on the back of those stories and explain and limit, expand. So the idea with just in a nutshell, the proverbial nutshell, with addiction awareness meditation is to see the way your particular substance abuse, substance use, substance, whatever it is, addiction, call it what you want. See how that actually works for you personally, to make it very, very personal. Because how it's working for you is so much different for someone else that may be the same age, everything about the two of you may be the same, except your way of working with your situation is much different. You may have a different kind of self-deception. You actually can't, even though there's this intense pull to go back and do more of that because of the relief you get, if you're not deceiving yourself, you probably won't do it because it'll be too clear. It'll be too clear. It'll be, instead of like, that really feels good. Instead of that, it's like, that's going to kill me. You'll actually see that ahead of time. You'll actually see that if you move in that direction, things are going to get very difficult. So you're not so apt to deceive yourself into thinking, well, this, one of the stories of deception is to say, well, I've been doing pretty good and I've quit before. So I've got to get through this one difficult passage, this one difficult time. So I'm just going to use just a little bit more to get me through this. Then I'm done with it. And there's lots of versions of that, which I'm sure all of you have thought about. Whether you're have some particular attachment to a chemical or not. There's lots of things that are called addictions. Golfing addiction, bowling addiction, sexual addiction. But it's not a sexual addiction unless you think it is. But why would that be? So it would be good to, with your own awareness for you personally, to really look at what this is for you, what this entails for you. And this is what, when I say addiction awareness meditation, I'm saying sit down, hold still, and get to know yourself. Make friends with yourself. Stop fighting with your negativity. If you're always at war with something, especially with some kind of something that's changing your consciousness and so on, probably you're going to have difficulty coming out ahead, because anytime you push on something or go to war with something, you shut down on it. Usually what happens is we go to war with what we think it is, and we fight that, and then so we're not even necessarily even addressing what it actually is. It's a substitute. It's an imposter, what we think it is. And I would say it this way, that if you actually see what it is, then if you see what it is so clearly, even though it has you by the throat, biologically or through your the habituation to a particular drug, you're probably going to be able to step away from it, because you will just see what causes that to happen and you will march the other way. And the other thing I want to say is there are so many things that aren't even mentioned. There are so many things going on in terms of being a human being that are totally blocked out, that aren't in our culture. And when they do seep into the culture, they are completely shut down because we don't want to hear about that. I can name a whole bunch of them. You want me to start? I'll start. Notice I didn't even wait for a response. I want to tell you. I mean, this is just a couple of them. One of them, astrology works. And when I say it works, I'm not saying you can predict the future, I'm not talking about hocus pocus. I'm saying that the cycles, and that's all I'm going to say, the cycle in which you're operating in has a profound effect on you. I'm not here to start an astrology class, but I'm saying cyclic movement of things is extremely powerful. And I'll just say, for those of you who know a little bit about it, if Mars is crossing over your ascendant, you're going to have a difficult time. I don't care how sane you are. Something is going to happen, if it's only just cutting your finger as you're chopping vegetables. Another one is, there are aliens. Don't shut down on that. And at the same time, don't believe a word I say. Look how much freedom you get by listening to an old man. Also, don't turn away from it. Don't ignore that. And there are also, as many of you in here already know, there are that when the body drops, your spirit doesn't go anywhere necessarily. You may stick around and haunt the temple. So those are just a couple. There's lots of other things that are operating all the time. If you see some of this clearly, all blaming stops. All giving credit stops, in a certain sense. It's not that you wouldn't say, that's a good job, you did a really good job on that, thank you so much for your help. Of course you would. You would be courteous and you would say that. But you would also be very clear that whatever that person did is dependently arisen on everything else that is arising and falling away. If someone comes to me and said, "Oh, Sokuzan, you're such a great teacher," I will say, "Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad it's helpful to you. But in no way do I think of myself as a great teacher." The closest I can come to that is thinking I had a couple of really great teachers myself. So there's so many things going on, pardon me, that we shut down on, we just don't even look. And so what I'm saying is, look, find out who you are. There's no one like you. Just like we look at fingerprints, there's no two fingerprints alike. Astonishing situation. Just a couple little swirls going around there, and there's no two alike. So the way in which, to go back to addiction awareness, the way in which you personally are having an issue with something that we're calling an addiction or attachment or grasping or fixation on some kind of a substance or something you have to do that is turning your world upside down into chaos, and losing your job, losing your whatever you may be losing. I'm suggesting that you stop this, look at this whole body-mind complex that we call a human being. Stop, sit down, find a place. It can be in a place like this. It can be in your bedroom, your hallway. It can be in your garage if it's warm enough. Sit down, hold still. Find something in front of you that's not doing much, like a wall that's not moving. Hold your body very still and observe what is coming and going and coming and going, appearing, going down, coming back up, going back down, and watch that. It's not because what you see is going to be so important or so helpful. That's not so much the idea. It's what happens with the awareness when this is done over and over and over. The awareness, without being totally invisible, gets stronger. You find that you're more and more aware of what's coming and going. You get up off the cushion after doing this for a few years, and you go into your environment, and you don't feel like you don't feel any different than you've ever felt. It's still the same old identity happening. But you can see so clearly, so very clearly, the way people are confused, crazy, and are suffering. Instead of, one of the changes you might see is when someone would come at you with a lot of anger, instead of going back at them with anger, to how dare they get mad at me, or how dare they treat me like this. Instead, same person saying it, you're still the same dude or dudette. Somebody's coming towards you, instead of going back at them with anger, you immediately see how much they're suffering. It's called awareness, awareness, awareness. You're aware of how much intense suffering is happening with everyone, even with these people that are supposedly leading our country. The suffering that causes that. Intense suffering, trying to get away from the suffering and be something else. If you're trying to be somebody else, then listen to what I'm about to say. Stop it. Don't do that. Be genuine. Actually, you're not going to be able to work with your negativity unless you're first able to just be that way. This is nothing new. This shows up in all kinds of therapies. They often say, just accept it, or just let go, something like that. I think those are maybe useful, maybe not. If someone is a student of mine, I don't recommend that at all. I recommend whatever is there, just look at it. Because if you let go of it, then this is an artifice. I mean, you might get rid of it for 3 months, but it'll be back because you've actually gotten rid of it. Whereas if you don't do anything with it, then what? What do you think? What do you think would happen? Then what? You don't get rid of it.
It dissolves.
Does it?
It takes care of itself.
It goes out and buys a dog.
Self-liberates.
Huh?
It
Self-liberates. No, you find that it's no longer a hindrance. You're no longer separate from your own difficulty, and you don't mind. If you're not at war with anything, then all kinds of negativity is free to come and go. You can sit and be, if you've understood this deeply, then you can sit at the kitchen table with your family and have very, very intense negative feelings come and go, and people around you won't even know it, because you no longer can find a self. This is the issue, the problem with most therapies, is there's just an assumption that there is somebody, that there is a solid being called me who can get better, get worse, be addicted, not be addicted, have this problem, that problem. And we're always trying to find that and get rid of that so our self can be healthy and happy and loving and so on. If you see that there isn't anyone, we're not saying there isn't a body here, there isn't a voice. We're not saying that there isn't some kind of mental quality happening or thinking, but not much. This is why a spiritual teaching of Buddhism is transcendent. It transcends the mundane world or the world of cause and effect, of life and death, up and down, back and forth, success and failure. Feeling good, feeling bad. Transcends it. And I can say it two different ways. Transcends it, transcends it. Transcends it, transcends it. Any questions? Shoka.
How does a spiritual path transcend those?
Spiritual path, if one trains oneself and follows a spiritual path, a teaching, a transcendent teaching, it helps one understand through awareness practice that there's no solid situation happening, that it is an illusion. The past and the future are illusions. There's only this. You can have a recall of some kind of a past that is made up of a bunch of stuff in a particular format. But if you look at the two thens, what I call the two thens, which is the future and the past, both of them are then. If you look at those, they're very similar. If you imagine, right now we all imagine, okay, the talk is over, we all get up and leave the zendo, and we all go to our various ways. So that's that image in our mind. But and then if we remember when we came in and everyone sat down and we chanted the sutras, and not that dissimilar. How do we know that one has happened and one didn't happen? I'm not saying we can't know. Of course we know that. Yes, sir.
Trying to figure out what you're saying. It occurred slowly to me, if the characters in my dream had an ego and were spinning and didn't know they were in my dream, they thought they were conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And after observing that, it appears to me to be the case that the characters in my dream do have an ego and they do not know they're in my dream. Is that a similar situation that I'm experiencing right now talking to you?
Yeah, similar. The Tibetans say the dream you have at night is the sample dream. That's what shows you what a dream is. This is the real dream. This is the one that is really unreal. No laughter. All right. Sit down, comic. Yes.
Question from Shane out in California.
Yes, Shane.
He has two questions. Three, actually. Is everyone addicted to something? Is it an essential part of suffering? Is it also an essential part of awakening?
If you use the word addiction, there might be some of that going on a little bit with everyone, maybe. I don't know. I can't say for sure. What would you say? What would you say? Unyo?
I don't know.
What would you say, Brittany? Everybody's addicted to something? No? Okay. How about you? Do you think so?
Is it an essential part of suffering to be addicted?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. You know, is wanting to stay alive, is that being addicted to life? You know, so you could use lots of ways you could look at that. It comes down to the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. There's a passion or a desire to have things different than they are. So if you were getting ready to die, then that's how you would find out how much you're addicted. If you're starting to die, your heartbeat's fading out and you're getting ready to flatline, and your friends and relatives are there holding your hand, looking all teary-eyed into your eyes, and you're looking back thinking, looks like this is acquaintance. You know, I mean, it's if you think about that, reflect on that. That would be a time when you would really get to know yourself really fast. You'd know what you were afraid of or what you were addicted to. It's interesting how some people actually have so much difficulty with this, they want out of here so bad they'll actually take their life. And what is probably quite surprising to them is just because you get rid of the body doesn't mean the consciousness is going to vanish. Well, I don't know if you use the word addiction. I think probably not. Maybe a little bit here and there. Maybe some of that. I think it's probably different with each person. Some people can be very stoic about that and not be drawn into any kind of a seduction. Yes, Sokuzan.
I was wondering if you could explain a little more of how awareness actually interacts or works with the compulsive behavior.
I feel that the way it looks over here is we actually see how the compulsion, how that actually, obsessive compulsive situation, we actually see how that functions. And by not trying to stop it, by not making any excuses for it or explaining it. So no aggression towards it and no further elaboration on what it is, we begin to be more and more clear about the way it actually functions. So the awareness, if we name something, not that you can't name something, but when you do that, don't put a lot of glue on the name. Make it so you can pull the name away and see what it is you're labeling, because it's under the label that's the actual texture and quality of that needs to be observed in order to see if there's a way of so that doesn't have its claws into us anymore. I feel, and my understanding is that if you see it clearly, it can't find anybody. It has to be able to find a self that is worried, petrified, is really frustrated about being, has labeled himself as being an addict. Anything, do any kind of labeling at all. Even using the word addiction is, interferes with, but we have to communicate, so we have to use something. So it seems to be the strengthening of the awareness helps. So as we live in our life and we run into situations that are, I have called in the past bad neighborhoods. Like when I talk to people who have a lot of difficulty with addiction, I just say, identify the bad neighborhood, first of all, and let's stay away from those. That could be another person. It could be music. It could be cigarettes. Some kind of what they call them, gateway. I don't know how interested I am in giving it that kind of a label, but there could be some kind of a, combination of things that could lead to something, which would be like an atmosphere or a neighborhood that would make it more difficult to stay away from that until the biological thing can have some kind of a detachment from whatever the chemical addiction was. I think it's so complicated that you can't really label any one situation that this is this way, you should do this, you should do that. I rarely give advice to anybody other than train your mind. Even students who are close to me have particular kinds of difficulty. I never say, just let it go. There are people who think that's probably a good idea, that you should let it go. And I may think you should let it go too, but I also am clear enough to know that me telling you to let something go is not near as good advice as try to see what that is. That's your opportunity, that negativity or whatever that problem is for you, that you could actually look at that as a Dharma gate or as a path to your own understanding. It has been said in the teachings, and I'm repeating it now, that Buddhas and sentient beings or delusion and awakening are not separate. They're not separate. They're not two different things. That's just about gives the self-centered ego mind a big headache. As soon as you say, I need to figure something out, this is ego. Not that you can't do some figuring somewhere, but when you say, I need to figure this out, It's just like you're turning away from the very thing you need to see because you've got a certain way that you accept information about something, and you're not about to just be there with it without some kind of information about it. Awareness doesn't give you information. Figuring things out does.
Until one sees that the thought patterns don't point to anything particular around using drugs or alcohol, how do we work with something that can be so dangerous as we're working with our awareness? How do you keep from dying?
That's kind of what I'm saying about bad neighborhoods. I've known people from AFR who have, probably shouldn't be mentioning their name particularly, but from drug rehab, who are no longer alive, that I felt very close to and wanted to help, who meditated, who were trying to learn to meditate. And I don't know what happened, but somehow they get into a bad neighborhood, and which could be a combination of any number of things. It could be the cycle that they're in. That's why I was mentioning astrology. I'm not here to market anything or convince anybody they should do that. I'm just saying that's just a couple of all the different ways of looking at the mind. There's just so many ways, and the ways of trying to understand the bad neighborhood. What is it that is going to lead you in that direction? Some people have kind of an intuition of it, and we hear people say, I can't go back. People come here a couple times a week, and we go in there 3 times a week to talk to lots of different people. Been doing it for, 7, 8 years, something like that. 3 times a week, or at least a couple times a week. And only that person is going to really know what it is that triggers that, causes them to go back in that direction. And that person, they need to see what that bad neighborhood is, recognize it, stay away from it. And if they can, if they're so inspired, not that you couldn't do it without meditation, of course you could. People have done that. But awareness practice will be less chance for you to deceive yourself and trick yourself, even when the personal weather gets bad. In other words, you lost your job, your relationship went in the garbage can, and various other things happen in our life. You lose somebody you really loved, left you, somebody you really loved died. This, especially if you're in the middle of something that's been making you feel better, some kind of a chemical or whatever it may be, it's going to be very hard to stay away from that. Yes?
As somebody who teaches addiction awareness, how do I work with my tendency to want to evaluate? It's very difficult not to blame yourself when somebody dies, like, oh, I should have, or pat yourself on the back when somebody's doing really great. So do we stick with the original inspiration, or what is the original inspiration there?
Just keep doing what you're doing. You'll eventually realize that you're pretty helpless. All you can do is be with people. Sit and be with them. Most valuable thing you can do with anybody is just be with them. And that may show up lots of different ways. It may show up as just like, how are you doing? They'll say, not good. I would stop right there. They may not want to talk. To be with somebody doesn't mean to chatter, and it certainly doesn't mean to try to fix them. You have no idea, an incredibly complicated person that's 22, 25, 32 years old. Don't meddle with anybody, especially without being invited. Just because they come to the classes on awareness classes where we're teaching meditation doesn't necessarily mean you have permission to do anything with them. Just be with them. Just be there. They'll let you know how much input. You're already there and you give talks on this. I know, I'm sure. There's 3 of you that do that. So I would say less is better. But more is better as far as go in, sit there, hold your seat. There's more happening there as far as someone's inspiration to practice just by meeting you, because you're always going to feel like yourself. You're not going to know how you affect other people. If you do, then this is self-centeredness and ego. More? Yes.
With addiction, it seems there are many components to it. There could be a physical component.
Yeah, certainly.
Bacteria, yeast, things that live in our body may crave something.
Yeah,
Family,
Yeah.
karma, history.
I got you. Yeah,
Entities or whatever.
could be anything.
Do those things attach to the ego? Is that what gives them? Is that what gives addiction power?
Ego's not real. Ego is you don't have to get rid of your ego. If you see that it's unreal, it's just, you're liberated. You have to really see it. It can't be just some kind of a flash where you think maybe you don't exist, but you're not sure. You have to fundamentally see that you don't exist. And if you're afraid of anything, you probably still exist. On some level, you're still protecting something. It's very subtle. So that being said, probably some kind of attachment to something, even though that's unreal. Probably there's some kind of a connection, some kind of Velcro happening, and it's so complicated that to try to go in and do some kind of surgery, psychic surgery or whatever on that is probably not going to fundamentally take care of it. The only thing that I know of, and I'm pretty biased in this area, having tried a few different things, sit down, find out who you are. And when I say find out who you are, I'm not saying you're going to find out who you are. But go in that direction. Sit down and don't give up. Don't stop. Don't cave. Yes.
When you say find out who you are, but you're not saying that you will find out who you are.
Yes.
What are you encouraging?
I'm saying look at the self that wants this and doesn't want that. Look at the person that you are that doesn't like this but likes this over here. Just examine that. Don't have to try to get rid of it. Just have to see that your hopes and wishes, your dreams, your desires, your aversions, fear, that they're running you. You're not free of your conditioning. Yes.
Why is this practice so powerful when it comes to addiction?
I don't know. What do you think?
Brings awareness to.
Well, that's what it is, because it's powerful because the awareness is so strong that if anything is sneaking around the corner trying to get away with something, we see it. But if you're not sincere and you kind of like fooling yourself, then you'll just continue that, and you probably won't meditate too much because you don't want to see that well. You want to cover things up. But that's what it is. The awareness sees more clearly how we keep reaching our hand in the cookie jar that's full of rattlesnakes. The image I used to use years ago when Brandon was here was it looks like a jelly roll, and as soon as you grab the jelly roll, it turns into a what? Rattlesnake. Yeah, that's a good image for addiction. Yes, sir, Billy.
I have a question I just wanted to share. I'm surrounded by people who are suffering intensely from their addiction, myself included. But as I was meditating today, I had this sensation of feeling like a drifter, meandering through my senses, and it was a very familiar feeling. It was sort of like how I felt when I was high, but it was the first time I felt some relief in the body. And it felt good.
Very good. Glad to hear that. Keep sitting. Yes, sent you.
Are we able to investigate what is beyond the label while still holding on to the label?
If you can see that it's a label, yeah, you can hand it. You don't have to get rid of anything. That really sounds great to me. You don't have to get rid of, to change anything, you don't have to get rid of anything. You just have to see really, really clearly. And then everything, to use the conventional kind of humdrum way of talking about it, it's going to sort itself out because things are already in balance. To one who sees clearly what this is, everything is perfect. The most negative, horrible thing that's happening is seen in the context of everything else. You actually see it. That doesn't mean that you're justifying what horrible people are doing when they're so unhappy they feel like they have to kill other people. We're not validating that or judging it. You just have to see a really, really large picture. It's so large there's not any frame. It's so large you can't see the boundaries. It's not even a picture anymore. It's more like a mirror. Yes?
A question from Sheldon in Union City. He asks, how is addiction wanting things to be different than they are?
Well, simply put, you're sitting on the couch and you feel like crap, and you think, if I did this or drank this or shot up this or smoked this or whatever it may be, I won't feel so bad. I won't feel so crappy. It's kind of a simple explanation. You want things to be different than they are. You're not willing to have negative feelings for any length of time at all. You won't put up with it. You think, when I say you, not necessarily you, Sheldon, but we tend to think that if we're not feeling good, something is wrong. Even though there's millions of nerve endings in all 6 of the senses, including the mind. Nerve endings. And the example I'm always using is if you stroke the nerve ending softly, then it's a pleasure. But same nerve ending, and if you rap on it or scrape it with something that's abrasive, it's the same nerve ending, but now it hurts. Anytime you have anything that is sensitive, it's going to be sensitive. So it's not about getting rid of any of that. It's about, you could say, not really objecting to anything, not agreeing with anything, and not turning away or shutting anything off. Those are the 3 poisons, as it's taught in Buddhism for 2,500 years. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. Those are the 3 ways in which we avoid reality. The traditional way of saying it, we avoid our Buddha nature. Buddha means awakened. Our awakened nature. We're already awake. Everyone is already awake. Nothing has ever slept anywhere. I'm not saying your body doesn't sleep, but you never sleep. You can't sleep. There's only awakening. This is a big hype, It's also a big, what? School? Look like a school? Yeah. Look at all the lessons that you're avoiding. Have a few more minutes if there are more questions. Yes.
Comment or question from Patrick in Seattle.
Yes.
He says, in my meditation practice, I've recently been experiencing a kind of disappearing, my mind becoming silent, like a TV shut off and no longer aware of my body. I have no idea where I am going. Is this what no mind is?
No.
I swear I'm not sleeping.
No, that's mind. What are you talking about? That's mind. That's his only question?
So far.
That was starting to get exciting there for a minute. So there's no accomplishment feeling, but that what is happening there for Patrick, and Patrick, I'm saying this to you now, what's happening, that will change. It'll fill back up full of turtles and minnows. Just be more stuff coming this way and going that way and up and there they come back down. For a while there, I was really, really clear and really, but now I'm all filled up with stuff again. Yes.
I just want to thank you for your teaching.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. If I don't have students, I can't teach. Nobody comes, I stay home. I mean that. Watch Netflix, yes.
That was an example I was going to use.
Netflix?
Yeah, if someone has a practice of
Yes.
some sort that is habitual,
Yeah.
the computer, something over and over again, Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
How does that habitual pattern Is that considered an addiction?
Probably not. It might be by others that don't want you to do that.
What is it then?
Just something you're doing. Something you like to play on the computer. Kids play, and adults play video games. People go to movies. I watch Netflix. I go on the computer and do all kinds of stuff, read things, listen to music. So, more about that if you've got
I
it.
guess I'm wondering if some of those habitual patterns can then play into something.
They could.
How is it that meditation doesn't seem to become a habitual pattern?
I'm pausing here because I'm trying to see if it's, I think I can get somewhat habitual. I think everyone is so different that it could happen where someone could habitually practice meditation. So I think there's something to that, is what I'm saying. More?
Is there a difference between that and having a schedule like we have here at the temple? You often say schedule it.
I do.
Because if we had our
Druthers.
preference, we would,
Yeah.
we would never.
We're lazy.
We'd never sit.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to sit. It's irritating to sit. If you're enjoying sitting, if you're meditating, you're really enjoying this, it's not going to last. I mean, it might last a few weeks, might last a few months. Could last even longer than that, but it's unlikely, because eventually, by holding still and sitting, you're going to see all of the junk that you've been avoiding or trying to get rid of, more than likely. Of course, there's no guarantees of anything. Yes?
What distinguishes a habit from an addiction?
To the person who's having it, or to other people. Other people might think you're addicted to meditating, or they might think you're addicted to that stupid temple you live at. You might think you're part of a cult. So, but someone else just who loves to watch sports, and they're on this. They have all these sports channels, and that's all they do is they watch, and they might go to work just long enough to make enough money to come back and watch sports, and buy some microbrews and hang out with their homies, watch sports. Now, to that person, they're no big deal. They like sports. Why wouldn't they do that? So if they're not creating problems for others, then I don't see any. You could say it's habitual, but it seems to be only an addiction if there's some kind of problem with it, like either bad for your health. You could possibly die, like some drugs kill people because of their use, or the chemicals they're using are black market or cut with something. So if you're doing something you enjoy doing and you're doing it habitually, it's just that. It could be a habit. More about that? There's more there. Yes. Yes.
I said I have something more, but along those lines. So, like, my addiction to alcohol.
Okay.
It's legal. It's something that I enjoy doing. It's been a problem for me in the past.
Yeah. Are you drinking now?
Yeah.
How much?
Uh,
Twice a week? 3 times a week?
yeah, or 3 times a week.
Okay. So is it creating problems for you other than your health? Because that's going.
No.
Yeah. How old are you?
27.
27. So you got a few years before it kills you.
Yeah.
It's meant to be funny. Probably not really funny. Yeah, kind of black humor. It's getting close to Halloween, so I get to do that. No, I'm just saying. I mean, I drank. People drink. I mean, it's all like you say. It's socially. It's okay. So, but the issue is you got 24 people. Most of those people can kind of socially drink and even drink quite a bit and do fine. I had my mother and my stepfather drank their whole lives, and it ruined their health. But they always went to work. They never They drove a car the speed limit. They were very careful. They managed to live long enough to be complete alcoholics and never even know it. They didn't even know they were alcoholic. They referred to other people. I remember when I was young, they would say, well, I say, how's that John? Is he coming over? Oh yeah, but, he's an alcoholic. And I would think, it's an alcoholic, some kind of terrible disease. It's like back in the 50s, if you got a divorce, you were a divorcee. Things change. So I would say that's up to you to determine how that works for you. Probably if it feels habitual, like you can't just not drink, then probably it's got a hook in you somehow, and it will probably get worse. When I say that, it'll just get harder and harder, even though you're starting to feel worse and worse. And I'm not predicting the future. I don't know. It might turn around altogether. But chances are that's probably something along the lines of what will happen. So it seems difficult for someone who has the addiction thing is just to cut it back and just do a little bit. But occasionally people can. I remember I used to smoke cigarettes many years ago, and I was always really irritated by someone who could smoke a cigarette now and then. And usually it was one of my cigarettes. Got a cigarette? Yeah, I'll get one. And then you wouldn't see them smoke again for 3 or 4 days, and then they'd be getting a cigarette from somebody else. Never had to buy any. So it's I think it's very personal. I think you could just take a look at it yourself and see. Just try to bring as much awareness to it as you can without criticizing. Don't clamp down on yourself, because then we start to make excuses or protect that situation so that we can continue to do it. So just be genuine with yourself. Be, as they say, be honest with yourself. Don't deceive yourself. Try to see what that is. Try to see. I mean, the way you're describing it, the way I would respond is continue to drink, but watch how your mind works around that. Before you start drinking, watch what your mind is doing. And by all means, if you're listening to me, sit a lot. Train your mind so you see clearly, so you can't be deceived by your own thought patterns. Are we any more? Yeah.
Kevin Townley from
Yes,
New York.
Kevin.
He asks, what about doing things we enjoy as a way of ignoring pain?
Well, what about it? As long as you're aware of it, if there's a lot of awareness there, then well, sure. I don't see. I'm not here to make everybody totally have no indulgences or anything. So it's just the idea of keeping some awareness around that, so you can see that that's what you're doing. It's more important to the awareness itself is more important than what arises in it. So awareness of something, but doesn't necessarily mean that what you're aware of needs some kind of special kind of attention. Maybe. Yes.
You mentioned that you were addicted to cigarettes.
Yes.
And how did meditation affect that addiction?
Oh, it gave me time off every now and then. I would stop for 6 months, 7 months, and then I would start again. And then I finally quit when I could see that I probably was probably gonna kill me if I kept going. I didn't want to die, so let's see, what should I do? So I quit, and I was the way I quit, I was just stubborn about it. But it took me a long time to do that, because I would think, well, I like to smoke, fun, tastes good, everybody's doing it. Except nowadays, everybody. When I was doing it, everybody. You actually were ads in the magazines in the 50s that would actually tell you, have a cigarette after Camels. Have a cigarette. It helps digest your food after every meal course or whatever. It was just kind of strange. And if you went into someone's house and they didn't have ashtrays, you would think there was something wrong with them. You wouldn't ask permission to smoke. You'd just light up. Say, where's your ashtray? We don't have any. If they were non-smokers, say, well, that's all right, just get me a plate. So, totally oblivious to this is probably bothering them. Your cigarette smoke. Yes.
So is there an expectation that an awareness practice or meditation practice will make an addiction go away?
It's not going to do that, but it will. The awareness practice around addressing just the addiction situation will just make it more clear the way your addiction operates. So then, if you really have the will, the sincerity to stop that, you'll be able to see more clearly how you personally need to work with that. And maybe AA, where you have a whole lot of company and a whole lot of talking about stuff over and over again, a whole lot of kind of patting each other on the back, a lot of that. Or it might be totally by yourself, where you're just working with it through an awareness practice. There's so many, some of the techniques in cognitive behavioral therapy can be valid or be helpful to see the way your thinking process are causing you to go in circles and come right back around and go through the addiction over and over and over again. But I don't think meditation alone is going to do that. Any further questions before we close? Very good. Thank you so much. We'll do talk number 2 on Sunday.
We'll stand and dedicate the merit that's in the back of your red chant books. And I'd also like to remind everybody about the donation boxes that we have in the hallway. We also accept donations online. So please help us. Every $10 bill helps, but not 25 cents through PayPal, because we don't get anything when that happens. We had somebody do that once. It all went to PayPal.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji-ho san shi shi hu shi son hu san moku san moko ja ho mi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.